To what extent the British East India Company caused poverty and underdevelopment in Indian subcontinent? The aim of our research question is to understand how much effect the East India Company had on Europe in the Eurocentric world order between 17th and 19th centuries. The aim of our research question is to analyze and better understand the root causes of devastating poverty and lasting economic and social underdevelopment in the Indian subcontinent, where the British India Company has been active for a very long time. Its mere presence and exploitative activities suggest that there may be a link between its activities and the major economic and social problems in this area. There is a reasonable ground to make an analytical assumption that there could be an association between the activities of the British India Company and the gruesome social and economic problems that the communities in the region experienced. Social phenomena are not easy to measure. In other words, there could be other reasons as well impacting upon the worsening of poverty and other similar problems. For this reason, it is essential to differentiate between relationality and causality. The main focus in a rigorous research agenda is to identify causality, which is, however, often confused with relationality. The research question naturally seeks to identify causality, which is often very hard to prove. To catch hints of this causality, the research question relies on the relevant primary sources for better analytic outcome and greater reliability. The findings, narrowly based on the sources reviewed in the study, also hold the potential of shedding light on the direct link between colonialism and local problems in broad context. We believe that our research question is both significant and relevant because the Indian subcontinent has been suffering from economic underdevelopment and severe poverty, as well as striking unfair distribution of income. The historical precedents for these problems may be well associated with the activities of a big force like the British Indian Company. Findings will shed light on the impacts of colonization, which often involve exploitation, repression, and supremacy. Colonialism has been studied from a number of perspectives, sometimes in an attempt to explain the developments in world politics and global economy. Such perspectives, either explicitly or implicitly, seem to suggest that the colonialist moves in different forms have positive and constructive impacts and effects upon target societies, only from a certain point in time. A critical scholarship emerged to subject these assumptions to a true investigation and scrutiny. As a result, there is now a growing literature of post-colonialism, heavily focusing on the negative and destructive aspects of colonialism, which, according to this literature, is also relevant to supremacist ideas including racism, apartheid, and oppression. The British colonialism is one of the good examples to further this discussion, although it was different from colonialist aspirations of some other European nations in some respects. The British colonialism still played major roles in the Indian subcontinent. Given this background, we believe that our research question is extremely relevant to this discussion being undertaken in the literature, and that is original in a way that it takes primary documents as a basis of the discussion to draw analytical conclusion.
When we look at the history of the East India Company, focusing on the economy helps us understand something deeper than what normal companies have, like just trade and profit. It shows us how economic control can reshape entire societies. The East India Company was not just a simple company. It became a powerful force that influenced how people lived, worked, and even controlled lands from India. At the core of it, the company was driven by profit and greed. It controlled major industries like textiles, spices, and later raw materials such as opium and tea. But this control was neither balanced or fair. Local producers in India were often forced into unfavorable contracts, paid very little, and sometimes prevented from freely trading with others. Traditional industries of India have declined, and wealth was increasingly redirected away from India towards United Kingdom. This economic dominance created a system where the company benefited massively, while many local communities became more vulnerable. So the company's economy wasn't just and fair, honest and truthful. The company exploited and abused the population, brought all of its wealth to itself, and grew larger and larger with no stop. These lead directly onto the issue of famine, which is one of the most tragic outcomes connected to company's rule. The most well-known example is the Bengal famine of 1770, where millions of people have suffered and died. Now famines have occurred in India before, but what made this different was how company responded. Instead of reducing taxes or helping affected populations, it continued to demand high revenues from farmers even if crops failed. In some cases, farmers were even pushed to grow cash crops instead of growing food, which made the situation even worse. The results of the famine was devastating. Food became scarce, prices rose, and people had no support system to rely on. This shows how economic policies directly contribute to the human suffering. The famine wasn't just a natural disaster. It was made worse by the decisions of the company focusing on profit over its own people. By the way, as we mentioned, the East India Company did control lands and their people of India. To show how weird this is, imagine the company of Apple controlling land and villages in the African country of Zimbabwe. Or imagine the company of Mitsubishi controlling the state of Hatay. Now imagine what would happen if these companies actually had these places for themselves. That is exactly what happened with the East India Company. Mismanagement, corruption, and famine. Another important perspective is diplomacy, or in simpler terms, how the company interacted with political powers. Even though it started a trading organization, the East India Company gradually became deeply involved in politics. It formed alliances with local rulers, negotiated treaties, and sometimes even manipulated conflicts to expand its influence. A key moment was the Battle of Plassey, where the company gained significant control over Bengal. After wars like these, the company grew even larger and larger. In some point of history, East India Company had a bigger military than its overlord, the United Kingdom. Through diplomacy and political strategy, the company secured its economic interest. But again, this power was not used equally. It mainly served the company's goals, often at the expense of local stability and fairness. In the history, East India Company were bailed out from United Kingdom many times to save the company. But after some time, the company started to grow too large and get into United Kingdom's politics. At this point, United Kingdom realized keeping the company was too risky. So the United Kingdom made a move and disbanded the entire company together. The company that was too big to fail now was too big to exist. In conclusion, the story of East India Company shows us how powerful organizations can shape history in ways that go far beyond their original purposes. In some cases, in the history or modern day, the firms can even be more powerful than other states. Non-state organizations or companies can have important roles in a state and can be as powerful as the state itself. Or as in East India Company's case, the company can become the state very itself.